Tenant offered food as rent, insisted on buying our house for $1, and now I'm forcing them to vacate. I, 31F, grew up pretty poor. I don't remember it well, but at one point my parents and I were only able to afford to eat beans and rice. My parents have since been able to pull out of poverty, and while they aren't rich they are comfortable, and I have used a lot of what I experienced as a kid as motivation to be super careful with my money. I got a job in high school, worked odd jobs on the side, saved up every penny, rode my bike everywhere instead of driving and paying for gas, and by the time I moved out of my parents' place I had a little over $17,000 in my savings. I don't have that much tucked away anymore, but I have investments and emergency funds and take my family's finances incredibly seriously, as I never want my children to experience what I did as a kid. Mine and my husband's financial choices afforded us the opportunity to purchase a home in the beginning of 2015, which we bought 50-50 with his mother. He paid his half up front, I made a large down payment, and his mother covered the rest with an escrow agreement that I would pay off what she had purchased. I have since completely paid my half and the house is fully owned by myself and my husband. It's a 4-bedroom, 1.5 bath, 2-story home with a finished basement, attached 2-car garage, on a double lot. We got the house for an absolute steal at only $118,000, for sale by owners. Since purchasing we have installed a fence, updated the oven, washer and dryer, water heater, furnace, and paid for materials to have all the interior rooms repainted. The only updates it needs are purely cosmetic, as the exterior paint is an ugly brown-pink color, which we have started repainting and need. To finish, the hardwood floors have some distortion due to it being a 100-plus-year-old house and us having dogs when we lived there, and the bathroom could use an update but structurally speaking doesn't need one. Needless to say, on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being tear down the house and start over and 5 being it's ready to put on the market to sell for $300,000 today, the house is sitting at a 3. 5 to 4. Backstory complete, let's get into what has become my biggest headache for the past 4 years. I have a friend, let's call her Carly, F27, who had incredibly similar experiences to me growing up, but struggles with finances and has never seemed to get the hang of keeping any sort of savings over $50 at a time. I'm not sure if it's a lack of self-control, or that she's simply too focused in the moment when she gets paid and doesn't think to look in the long term, but she consistently makes her lack of funds everyone else's problem. I don't blame her for having issues with money, as learning to create a budget isn't exactly taught in school, and it took me years to learn to find a healthy balance, and the freedom of being able to buy whatever you want with no restrictions is super tempting, but at some point you have to learn to take responsibility. During the course of our friendship, I have helped her build countless budgets based off of my own. I made roughly the same amount of money as her, but each time they failed, for whatever reason. We tried different ways to try to trick her brain into realizing that money sitting in her account wasn't to be touched, as everything needed to be used for bills, etc., and each time she would wind up still using every penny. It finally came to the point where I refused to help her with her budget anymore, because she never listens to my advice, and when I pointed out the easiest and fastest method to get her spending under control was to get a payee, she said she didn't need to be treated like a child who receives an allowance. Fair enough. I washed my hands of that topic. Carly moved out of her mom's house a little over 6 years ago and into a mutual friend's place, let's call her Tia, F27. As far as I have been told by Tia, Carly paid little to nothing in rent, even though they both worked at the same company and made close to the same salary. Carly's living space was an absolute disaster. She moved into the basement and it was lucky if there was even a walkway to get to the washer and dryer. She constantly asked me to come over to help her clean and organize her space, and because I'm a people pleaser I would always agree. Each time we would make significant progress, but then by the next weekend when I would come over to help again it was as if a tornado had gone through her space in the course of the week. I have no idea how she was able to fit so much stuff into that tiny space. She would never clean up on her own or make any sort of effort to put anything away and would always wait for me to come over, and if anyone were to come down to watch us it was always me cleaning or organizing while she sat back and dictated where everything went. Getting her to donate or throw anything away was like pulling teeth, as somehow even the smallest scrap of paper had some sort of sentimental value. After a little over a year of them living together, Tia couldn't handle it anymore and asked Carly to find some other living situation. She wasn't going to throw her onto the street, but she literally couldn't live with Carly any longer. There are a lot of other things that built up that caused this, but I won't go into that here. It just so happened that my husband and I had purchased a second home around the same time. What we had owed on the first was paid off, my husband had come into an inheritance, and we were able to look for our forever home that better fit our wants and needs. The best part for us is that the new house was literally a 5-minute drive from the old house. We had yet to decide whether we wanted to sell or rent our first house when Carly approached us with the offer of renting it from us. She and 2 other friends were looking to move in together, and with the house being as big as it was, there was plenty of space for all of them to have their own room and privacy. Since we hadn't yet decided if we wanted to sell, and there were 3 renters already lined up, we decided to use it as a means of passive income to invest in our future, and then down the road we would revisit whether or not we wanted to sell it or keep it as a rental. The red flag that I didn't initially pick up on was that Carly was already referring to the house as her house to her 2 potential roommates, even before moving in or signing a lease, so by the time it came to them all moving in, Carly had driven the other 2 girls to back out. The way I had written the original lease agreement was that the rent was flexible depending on how many tenants there were, so for the 3 of them they would have only been paying $750 total per month, and if only one person was renting it would be $400 per month. In this area you can expect to rent a bedroom for $400, so this was a crazy good deal as we really didn't need the money and it was mainly to pay for insurance, power/heat, and property taxes. In the 4 years that Carly has lived in that house, rent has gone up 4 times. Once to $500 a month because the power bill went up and we needed to adjust for that, the second time to $550 a month due to the same reason, the third time to $750 after she got a new job, and last year in October, more on that later. Also in the 4 years she has lived here, 2 separate opportunities for roommates have backed out. Each time because she was setting the rules and referring to the property as her house despite having zero claim to it and the fact that each person would have their own lease agreement. When she first moved in she was working a minimum wage paying job and she was my friend, hence the low monthly rent, but a year and a half ago got a new job at a local university, 30-minute drive away, that pays very well and has great benefits, but somehow she manages to blow through her entire paycheck on I don't even know what. Also during the course of these past 4 years she wound up owing me $750 in back rent as she repeatedly was unable to pay me the full monthly amount due to repeated miscalculations in her budget and overspending on garbage, which she then stuffed into mine and my husband's property. My husband and I realized after a couple years of being landlords that we aren't cut out for it. We have too much on our own plates and had no time for upkeep, and Carly wasn't holding up her end of the rental agreement that she had signed. We talked about it and settled on the decision to sell, but we of course didn't want to throw Carly onto the street and informed her of our plan. She proposed to buy it from us and started going through the route of getting a loan. During this process she realized that the house wasn't what she wanted. She wanted land and the house itself was far too big for her. She told us that and we understood, and I even helped drive her to meet with realtors so she could check out other options to buy houses elsewhere, but each one fell through as she discovered that she wasn't going to get a new homeowner's discount or bargain with any loans that she looked at, and all of the loans required at minimum of a 10% down payment, which she of course didn't have. This is where the entitlement starts. Carly wasn't going to be able to buy a home, at least not the home she wanted, and settled on buy our house. We had briefly talked at the very beginning of her tenancy that we may consider a rent-to-own situation, but no agreement had been made. No sale price had been decided, no appraisals or property inspections completed, nothing had been signed. It was simply a comment that we had made in passing and then chatted about later, again in passing. She took it as gospel truth and said that if she bought the house that she expected the 5 years of rent she had paid us to be comped off the total sale of the house. I reminded her that we never signed anything about a rent-to-own and informed her that wasn't how this was going to work. Her next tactic was to try to suggest that we quit claim deed the property to her, again without her paying us anything additional to the 5 years worth of rent she had already paid us. How this works is that whoever owns the property grants the title/deed to whoever they're giving it to, and it's generally a lot faster and cheaper than going through the process of buying a house, but there is still generally something paid for the property when the title is transferred. At this point she'd only paid about $10,000 in rent, more than half of which went to paying for utilities that we covered, instead of having her pay them in property taxes, and she was making it sound as if she wasn't going to give us anything beyond that. I again told her that this would not be a viable option. The house was in great condition, and even with the exterior paint and repairs to the floors and bathroom was worth at least what we had paid for it, $118,000. She tried to spin it that she was doing us a favor by taking it off our hands, as I had expressed to her that we were tired of being landlords and it was more effort than we had time for. Her last attempt at buying the house on her own was to offer me $1. That's right. A single dollar. I will admit, I don't know if this was a failed joke attempt on her part, but it certainly fell flat and I was so mad I was shaking, though I laughed it off. Side note, during the time she has lived in the house, my husband and I have some stuff stored in the garage, as Carly parked on the street due to convenience, and she suggested on multiple occasions that she start charging us rent for storing things in our own house when none of it was in her way whatsoever, and we had already made it clear that if she purchased the house that we would remove all of our property. At the end of 2022, Carly started dating Reggie, 28M. They were long distance and would take turns visiting each other, and Carly made the comment to Reggie that we were looking to sell the house, and we threw out a couple numbers, the very lowest being $100,000, but said that we of course would have to have an appraisal and look at market value, etc. He offered to buy it from us and said that he would start the process in March/April of 2023. I was relieved, my husband was relieved, Carly was relieved, everything was looking great. Some information about Reggie at the time: he is a retired Marine. He gets a monthly check from the government for close to $2,000 on top of his well-paying job. I'm guessing based on what Carly told me, but at the time he made his offer he was probably making between $4,500 to $5,000 a month. When March/April came around, Carly and Reggie informed us that he would not be able to afford paying both his rent where he lived and a monthly mortgage payment and wouldn't be able to start the purchase process then, but would start the purchase process in October instead when he planned to move in with Carly. Before Reggie moved in, an ex-friend offered to rent a room in the house from Carly and pay her despite subletting being clearly stated in the lease agreement as prohibited. Carly so generously offered to pay us some of the amount that she was paid. The agreement fell through and the friend did not stay in the room. I'm not exactly sure why he chose to do things the way he did, but Reggie didn't start the purchase process at all until after he had moved and quit his job, meaning the only source of income he had to show to a mortgage company was the monthly stipend from the government, which even with a veteran's loan doesn't work as proof of income. When he moved in, rent increased to $1,000 a month, which is still undervalued for the size of the home, and a brand new rental agreement was written and signed stating that if they had not started the buying process to purchase the house from us by mid-April of 2024 that we would not be renewing the lease nor would we work with them on month-to-month rental options, as myself and my husband are completely and totally over this mess. We also stated in the rental agreement that we were not going to list the house for sale as a sign of good faith to allow Reggie and Carly first choice on the house to buy it. Here's a rapid-fire list of things that have happened since October. Reggie paid the $750 that Carly owed to me in back rent. Carly and Reggie informed us at some point either late November or early December that they would not be buying the house as the repairs required amounted to more than $50,000. I don't know where they got this number, as I have budgeted on multiple occasions to redo the flooring and it would be less than $15,000 to redo the entire house, nor would repainting cost more than a few thousand, or the bathroom remodel, as they intended to do the work themselves. We repaired the major damage in the bathroom recently for less than $500. They could not acquire rental housing due to having 3 cats and will indeed be staying in the house. We informed them we are not renewing the lease and reiterated our reasoning. I made the mistake of telling Carly what we owed on our mortgage and they turned around and offered us $50,000 to buy the house from us, less than 1/3 the market value of the house if we sold it as is. We politely declined and then promptly went home and screamed into pillows. They have repeatedly told Tia that they are desperate for money to the point of debating setting up a GoFundMe, all the while Carly has gotten 2 brand new tattoos in the past year, and has an international trip she has paid for in full that she is going on at the end of March, and Reggie has still not acquired even a part-time job. We emergency installed a water heater that Reggie paid for that I will have fully paid back by the end of March. Carly quit her job and now the only income they will have after the end of this week is Reggie's military stipend. Carly nonchalantly stated that we would have to renegotiate rent for this month and next month. There will be no negotiations. She made a bad decision and will have to live with the consequences of her actions. The most recent thing she did was text me 2 days ago asking if she could pay me in food for this month's rent. Knowing her, the amount she will pay will amount to only a couple meals and maybe $75 in groceries instead of the roughly $500 that they will owe. I owe Reggie roughly $500 left to pay off the last bit of the water heater. I jokingly answered that the electricity and insurance companies don't accept food as payment, so neither can I. She then offered to pay me what it would cost to pay these expenses and then the rest she would pay in food. I have not responded. It's been a day and a half. They will pay me in cash and nothing else. I'm done. No discussion. My warning to all of you, don't mix business and friends without getting to know said friends very well first. If I had known what I would be walking into, I never would have allowed her to move it. Update 1. There was some great advice in there and I appreciate it. I should clarify. The reason we let Carly move in the first place is because she made it sound like she literally had nowhere to go. She'd spun a tale that her home life with her mom was not safe. Untrue. She made it sound like Tia was literally kicking her out that day. Also untrue. And she panically hounded me relentlessly in person and over the phone until my husband and I made a super quick decision to let her rent from us. I've learned this is a method of manipulation. I've reached out to an attorney. We talked about everything that's happened. They read through the lease and gave us a few options. 1. We wait until May 1st when Carly and Reggie are supposed to be out of the house. If they're not out, deliver an intent to sell notice. That gives them 90 days to vacate the property after the lease is up. Not ideal. 2. We deliver the intent to sell now. That means they have until mid-June to GTFO. Still not ideal, but better. If they're still in the house past the 90 days, we file unlawful detainer and the cops forcibly kick them out. We can't evict because we don't have the grounds. Even with all of this, the courts just about everywhere are against landlords and in favor of tenants. That the minute their rent is late, we then have grounds for eviction. That gives them 14 days to pay or GTFO. But if they pay, the eviction process ends. So still not ideal. They can't get squatters' rights because they haven't been here long enough. I'm going to be telling her mother everything she's done, because I'm pretty sure she has no idea. I'm also telling all our mutual friends. I've done a lot of self-reflection lately before writing this post and came to several conclusions. I know she's not my friend. I had a false idea that I was helping someone that I saw as a friend, and in the end I enabled her shitty behavior. I'm aware I'm a doormat. I know I don't know how to set boundaries. I spent a lot of time on the phone and in professional offices over the last few days. I'm on a waiting list to see a therapist and learn to set boundaries, because I don't ever want to teach my kids my bad behaviors and habits that got me into this mess. And for all of you who mentioned that it's a miracle my husband is still with me, he was with me along the whole process. I never did anything without his consent, since we own the house 50-50. I'm taking most of the blame because Carly was my friend. I've apologized to him and we had a deep conversation about working on communication. He apologized for not seeing sooner that my friend wasn't who she claimed to be and didn't warn me I was being manipulated. Update 2. They're out and have been since April 1st, and no, it wasn't a joke despite the date. Life's been insane and I've been so overwhelmed with this whole situation that it's been hard to get back on here and face it all again. They left the house a mess, but that's not surprising. They claimed they didn't have the time or money to finish even though there was a whole month left on their lease. Honestly, I'm happy that they're out, though I am pissed about the mess. I'd rather clean up a bit instead of fight them in court to kick them out. I told her mom and showed her everything, and her mom was angry as well and told her off a couple times for 1, leaving the house in the state they did, and 2, treating me, and others, the way she has. I've also started therapy and am working on setting boundaries and getting over my people pleasing. The last I spoke to Carly was yesterday because I learned from a friend that she joked about leaving the house a mess on purpose because she was mad at me. I confronted her and asked why, even if it was a joke, because even jokes have some basis in truth. She said that it was because emotions were running high and she was stressed at the end when they were getting ready to leave, that she was frustrated with how little I did with the house while she was there, despite me repairing everything that needed it ASAP, and she was mad my husband and I stored some of our things in the garage. I explained that 1, it's our house, we can do that, 2, there was plenty of space in the garage for her things as well, and 3, none of her vehicles would have fit in the garage anyway as they were all too long and none of them ran, so she couldn't have even gotten them into the garage. Carly also had to junk out 2 of the vehicles she left behind, even though she'd explained she had someone who could keep them on their property so she could work on them. I don't understand any of her logic. I'm done trying to figure it out. Last thing she said to me was that she was sorry, though I don't believe she genuinely is and is just saying it to make herself feel better. Update 3. So, here's what's happened since Carly and Reggie vacated. The mess, and the weird discovery. The mess they left was predictably bad, but also a little unexpected. Yes, the guest bedroom was packed with junk and more half-broken IKEA furniture than anyone needs. Yes, the kitchen was sticky and the fridge contained several science experiments. But it was the basement that took the cake. After hauling 6 contractor bags of trash up the stairs and wrestling a completely ruined armchair to the curb, my husband and I started noticing something strange about the back utility closet, a faint, constant hum. It turns out Carly and Reggie had hidden 2 ancient chest freezers back there, both packed solid with, well, mostly expired frozen pizza and about 25 pounds of what we think was homemade tamales, labeled "Do Not Open," seriously. In Sharpie. I can't imagine why, but both freezers had been unplugged, so we paid a junk hauler to take the entire thing, contents and all, without opening them. He later texted he hasn't forgiven us for whatever smell that released in his truck. Other than that, repairs weren't as bad as they could have been. There were a few odd holes in the walls, some apparently from hang a bike on this nail and hope for the best projects, and some creative paint touch-ups. The worst was a giant mural Carly painted on the basement wall, picture a 3rd grade knockoff of The Last Supper, but with cats. We're still debating keeping that for posterity. The redemption-ish? After a week of cleaning, patching, and redoing the downstairs bathroom grout, we listed the house as is with a local realtor, barely able to believe the whirlwind of finally reaching this point. Then Carly's mother called. I almost didn't pick up, but curiosity got the better of me. She apologized again on Carly's behalf, and then, amazingly, offered to come over and help touch up the trim and repaint the porch as a thank you, and I'm sorry you got stuck with my daughter's mess. I took her up on it. She's hilarious, works like a machine, and the 2 afternoons we spent working together turned out to be genuinely healing. We talked about boundaries, about how the past few years hurt but also taught both of us. She said, I raised a wild raccoon in a human costume and I should have warned you. By the end, the house felt like ours again, not polluted by all the weird drama that had piled up. The listing, and a new, unlikely buyer. We had just started fielding interest from several investors who kept lowballing us. Everyone wants a deal, nobody wants to respect the 100-year-old hardwood. Then, out of the blue, Tia, yes, that Tia, Carly's former roommate, called me. She'd gotten out of a bad relationship, had a new partner, and was looking for a long-term, affordable place to call home. She was heart and throat worried that I would have PTSD from renting to someone in the friend group, but honestly, knowing how responsible she's been all these years, I didn't hesitate to meet with her. Tia and her partner toured the house, made a fair offer, and, after all the horror stories, went out of their way to show bank statements, job references, and even ideas for landscaping and fixing up the floors themselves. It was surreal walking through the house, sharing memories of when she and Carly first moved out years ago. This time, it felt different, a bit like a shadow lifting. Tia and her partner are set to close in early July, and we signed a sale agreement last week. My husband and I basically danced around our kitchen after we signed. Meanwhile, Carly and Reggie. I know some of you will ask, so here's what I know. Word travels fast here. Carly and Reggie moved into a rental in a neighboring county, someone's in-law suite, from what I hear, where the landlord lives on site and is known for having zero patience for late rent. Carly posted about her fresh start on Instagram, lots of shots of her cats, some influencer-style coffee posts, and exactly no mention of the circumstances that led to their new digs. She blocked me almost everywhere but sent one last email, subject, no hard feelings, which I deleted unread. I do know from mutual friends she got another university job, albeit contract only, and Reggie started working the front desk at a local gym. My hope is they'll maybe finally learn the joys of living within their means. Or at least, not drag anyone else's house or heart through the mud in the process. On my end, lessons, therapy, and moving the hell on. I'm still in therapy, still working on the people pleasing, and still figuring out what boundaries look like. In the process, I realized how much fear I'd held on to. Fear of being mean, of causing a scene, of not being seen as the nice friend. The day after Tia's offer went through, I stood in the empty living room, sunlight pouring through the battered west windows, and realized I wasn't angry anymore. I was grateful. Maybe not for all the pain and the mess, but for finally seeing the difference between helping and enabling, between kindness and self-destruction. My husband and I are planning a real vacation for the first time in years, as in, a trip where we will not check emails every few hours, not field panicked calls from tenants, not race out to fix heaters or water heaters or unclog toilets. Maybe we'll repaint the old kitchen table. Maybe we'll finally get to finish painting the exterior of our own house, no brown pink this time. Life feels light. Final, weirder, twist. About 2 weeks ago, I got a handwritten letter addressed in Carly's scrawling block letters. For a second I thought it might be something dramatic or legal, but it was honestly just weird. She sent a good luck talisman, a painted rock, and a printout of that cat mural from the basement, attached with a note reading, "I hope your next house is as creative as this one." I taped it up in the closet, my own secret reminder that lessons, even the hard ones, can be a little funny in hindsight. So, that's where things are. I got my house back, my peace back, and a whole set of stories I hope I never have to repeat again. Update 4, the closing, and a surprise guest. Tia and her partner's closing went off without a single hitch, which, if you followed any of this, is honestly shocking. They moved in on a wild, rain-soaked Monday, carrying boxes with smiles bigger than the double lot itself. I stood in the kitchen one last time, hands still smelling like fresh caulk and pine sol, and I finally felt relief. Not the adrenaline-fueled relief of narrowly avoiding disaster, but real, heart takes a breath relief. We popped a bottle of cheap sparkling wine for Tia. She insisted, we're celebrating new beginnings, not old nightmares, and then she invited a handful of mutual friends over. Every one of them, even the ones who had moved far away from Carly in every possible sense, stopped by to help bless the house. There was music, laughter, a little group unloading in the backyard about what a saga, and, because this is my life, a forgotten, unopened storage bin in the garage labeled Carly, do not look. Dry-mouthed, we all squinted at it. I flat out refused to touch it. Tia, braver than me, popped the lid. Inside were 5 tacky faux velvet cat paintings, a plastic Viking helmet, and a stack of unopened mail for Reggie, all credit card offers and 3 letters marked immediate response requested. I practically begged Tia to throw it out, but she called Carly instead. To my jaw-dropping disbelief, Carly showed up, unannounced. 20 minutes later, unexpected closure. She was cagey but polite, sporting a turquoise faux fur scarf and sunglasses too big for her face. She seemed almost sheepish, until she caught sight of her old mural's printout, which I'd stashed in the closet. She smirked, said, "Ah, good, my legacy lives on." She took the box and, this is true, hugged Tia and me, then said, "Sorry again about the mess and the drama. I was in a really strange place. I'm trying therapy this time. For real." Then, in true Carly fashion, she handed me 2 fresh tamales in a Ziploc with parting gift, scrawled on them. Tia and I exchanged a look. We discreetly disposed of them later, just in case. A week later, Tia texted, "No more weirdness. No more random objects left behind. It feels like home now." Apparently, with the old energy gone, the garden bloomed overnight. Tia even unboxed some string lights they found buried in the basement. Carly must have forgotten those too, and strung them up, for a backyard movie night. I was invited, and for the first time, I said yes without any fear or obligation. It was beautiful. The unexpected turn just as I thought everything was settling down. I got a LinkedIn message, of all things, from Reggie. He asked if I could provide a reference for his strong maintenance and property management record. I nearly choked on my tea. I took 3 days, and 1 therapy session, to draft the most diplomatic answer. I can confirm Reggie lived in our property from X date to Y date. Beyond that, I recommend contacting his employer for specific references. He replied, "Thanks, that should help. Sorry we were a headache." I took it as the closest to closure I'll get from him. A temporary return to real life, and a ghostly encore with the house out of our hands. We finally booked our long-postponed vacation, a week at a lakeside cabin. My husband and I swam, read, did puzzles, and made lazy plans for the future. On our last night, while roasting marshmallows, my phone lit up with yet another unknown number. It was Carly's mom, again. She was laughing so hard I had to ask her to slow down. Apparently, Carly had taken the good luck talisman, that painted rock, from my letter and put it on the dashboard of her new, used, car. Not 20 minutes later, the car broke down in spectacular fashion on the side of the interstate. Maybe she'll take the universe's hint. her mother joked. Meanwhile, Tia says the house is already hosting found family dinners and the backyard is full of sunflowers and games. She's framed a print of the cat mural in the laundry room for posterity. A warning and a blessing, she told me. Where we are now, life doesn't always tie up in neat bows, but this chapter. I feel like the ghosts of those 4 weird, draining years finally moved on. Carly still posts on Instagram, new job, new apartment, cats prowling atop towers of more mystery boxes, more tattoos. Her captions now speak of turning corners and learning lessons the hard way. I don't know if she gets it, not really. But for the first time, I don't care if she ever does. P is already inviting her chosen family over for fall bonfires. She keeps sending me progress photos, painted trim, bookshelf nooks, feral cats in the backyard. I always thought houses could carry the weight of old mistakes, but this one seems immune, like it's decided, enough is enough. Meanwhile, we're finishing the paint on our own forever home, no brown pink in sight. Clean walls, clean conscience. My kids helped pick the colors this time, wild, bright, nothing anyone could call boring. This is where my story ends, at least on this house, this friendship, this mess. It's not perfect, and it never will be, but it's mine now. And I'll never rent to a friend again, but if Tia ever needs anything, she'll get it in writing. Sometimes a cat mural is just a cat mural. Sometimes it's the end of an era.